Clearly, we did a great
Okay,
job.
6:31. It only took us less than a minute to get that rolling. Thank you, Christine. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Anybody need introductions here? No. Changes, addition into the agenda, I believe, during the superintendent's report, the YRBS data is going to come first. Or do you want me?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay. I didn't know if you want me to slip before public participation, but I will take a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion.
Oh. That wasn't me. It was me. I want to get ready for when I present.
That's fine. The August 28th, 2023 minutes. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any additions to it? Any questions? Any discussion? I actually read them all the way through carefully because I thought I was reading the agenda. I was really confused, but after I righted myself, I realized that they were quite well done. So all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 All those.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the minutes are approved. Public participation. Public comment is not legally required, but we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns over issues. Through these meetings, our board models for our students how to conduct public discourse, and that the board and members of our community can approach controversial issues in a civil and constructive manner and can demonstrate mutual respect. Having said that, please note that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed for discussion. Please start by identifying yourself and what town you reside in. So we'll start with in the room. Anybody with public comment in the room? It seems the way. Anybody online have public comment? I guess not. Okay. Administrative report.
All right, we'll start with Melanie. She's here to report out on the YRBS data. She did that at the Mount meeting, I think last month, but she's here to share general information with the Southeast Supervisory Board. So thank you for coming, Melanie, once again. And you can you share your screen?
I can, yeah. I hope to be more successful at it than I was at the Mount School District. It's a bit of a nightmare, but we're gonna try better today. So it usually goes sideways when I do the full presenting mode, but can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, so hopefully it will advance. Thank you all for having me. I'm Melanie Sheehan. I am the Director of Community Health at Mount Hospital, and presenting our 2021 Youth Risk Behavior Survey data with you all. So the outcomes of our time together is we're going to just talk a little bit about the demographics and some disclaimer statements regarding the survey year, making sure we're framing the appropriate lens in how we're looking at the results of this data. We'll do overview of the data in a SWOT analysis, and then allow time for questions, input, feedback. Also created a few resources at the end as well. So demographically, the high school students for the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union, we had 144 students, 9% BIPOC, 91% white non-Hispanic, and 38% identifying as LGBTQ+. Middle school students, 219, 6th through 8th grade, 5% BIPOC, 95% white, non-Hispanic, and 40% identifying as LGBTQ+. So the disclaimer here is the 2021 survey was given out during COVID in the fall. And that's an unusual time to do it. Usually the YRBS is taken in April or May, which is at the end of a student's school year. So we're really not looking at apples to apples here. And we're trying not to, I mean, we always look at trends, but this is an unusual circumstance. And so it's not really the same process to look at this year's data compared to the previous years. So caution is to be used when interpreting it. There are statistical differences noted among subgroups, and they should be considered as meaningful, and the disparity may merit a targeted intervention or mean something important to the community.
Excuse me, Beth?
Yeah.
Do you have a clarifying question?
I don't have a clarifying question. The slides aren't advancing on my end. I don't know if anyone else is experiencing that, if it's just me.
No, they're not
Yeah,
advancing yet.
They're not advancing.
Okay.
Thank you for speaking up. So let's not leave it in presentation mode. Can you see the disclaimer now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I guess we'll just have to do it this way. It's not ideal, and I know it ends up being smaller for you guys, so we'll try to make it bigger.
You need to get
You
in.
should put it in presentation mode.
I had it in presentation mode, but that's what you're not seeing the slides advance. So this is the hiccup I have. I don't know why this happens. So the slides will be sent out. Christine has these, and I can send them out again so everyone can have them afterwards, and you'll be able to read through them. So why is the data important? We use the Youth Risk Behavior Survey data to determine the prevalence of health behaviors and differences among subgroups of students. Schools can use this data to determine policies or practices needed to support students. And we in community health and in public health assess if we have community-based programs that can help support students as well. So just talking about framing a little bit and having objectivity in data review, we look at particular subgroups of students, but we want to avoid the inclination to place blame. Our minds tend to do that naturally, not necessarily blaming individuals or societies, rather seeking solutions grounded in civility and human-centered approaches. We tend to, if there's an indicator that shows that students are reporting less support in the school environment, that doesn't mean there's something wrong in the school, that sort of thing. So just keeping that frame in mind. So this is an executive summary highlight of students from statewide data. This is not Windsor Southeast. But overall, across the state in this data set, we are seeing students experiencing poor mental health, anxiety, sadness, and suicide risk. Particularly among female high school students, they are appearing to be 2 times more likely than male students to report self-harm, making a plan for suicide, and attempting to commit suicide during the past year. We're seeing BIPOC and LGBTQ plus students significantly more likely to be treated unfairly and experience violence compared to their peers. LGBTQ plus students also 3 to 4 times more likely to report the harm, self-harm, suicidality compared to their heterosexual cisgender students. EVP stands for electronic vaping products. Alcohol and marijuana use among high school students continues to be a concern. However, many students are reporting the prevalence or the presence of protective factors. So in prevention, we tend to look at risk factors, which are also balanced by protective factors. And we find that the more assets that youth have in their lives, the more protective factors they have to combat the risk. So that's kind of good news. What we're seeing is that middle school females, BIPOC and LGBTQ plus students tend to experience protective factors at lower rates than their peers. So it's really jumping off the page at us across the state, these risk categories. So diving a little bit into the data for this school district, again in SWOT format, I just want to make sure that it's clear that anything that's on the list here are statistically significant differences when compared to statewide peers. So the strengths in this data set for the district, high school males have a healthier perception of risk of use. So high school males believe that they're at greater risk of harming themselves with daily or frequent substance use than their statewide peers. High school males are less likely to ride with someone who've been drinking. High school students in this district are more physically active compared to their statewide peers. The high school vaping rates are holding steady, and middle school rates are trending down. Cannabis use in middle school is trending down. High school females report further education plans at rates higher than their statewide peers, and high school students reporting that their parents have a healthy amount of checking in and knowing where they are. So these are all very positive results. And, we tend to get bogged down in risk, but we always want to highlight what's going well. Similar to jumping over to the weaknesses that we're seeing in the data, similar to statewide, poor mental health indicators, especially among the high school females population. We're seeing troubling risk behaviors related to sexual activity and substance use, again, especially among high school females. Disparate populations are being treated differently, especially in that female population. Cannabis use in high school is up to 1 in 4 persons, so 25% in the past 30 days. Less than 50% of high school males have reported further education plans. And middle school students are less likely to agree that their school has clear rules and consequences. It's important to highlight from a public health point of view and what we've learned in prevention that having clear rules and consequences is a protective factor among students. So, we think that students, if we're their pal and we just let them off easy, that they feel valued, but in reality, kids like to feel that boundary. So opportunities when we look at this data to be thinking about, oops, sorry, hang on. So exploring further those disparities among subgroups, again, particularly around females, BIPOC, and LGBTQ students. Engage parents who are demonstrating connections. So we see that in the strengths above. So there might be some potential there in getting parents together in leading some initiatives. The students themselves can explore these results through a Getting to Why program. Getting to Why is hosted by Up for Learning, and the students actually learn a deep data dive process to get into this YRBS data, and then they can do a presentation similar to this from their youth perspective. And it's really engaging because they end up sharing their ideas for what they want for their peers. Identifying if cross-tabulation reports can drive change. So you might want to dig a little deeper into the high school female population and pull out just those responses. Or you might say, what is the rate of suicidality or self-harm among cannabis users? Are cannabis users more likely to report self-harm than non? So that's what cross-tabulation means. Some threats in looking at this data, some indicators of importance were not reported on enough in order to count in this survey. So if not enough students answered a question, we really can't see what those results are. And middle school students are reporting high incidence of riding in a car with someone using alcohol or cannabis. So that could also be an opportunity for parent education at that level. And I'm just going to keep going through these because in presenting, I can't see all of you. So I do hope that I can address any questions as we get to the end. I just don't want you to think I'm not open to questions. So, sorry, was that a question for me?
Nope.
Okay. So indicators of note. So looking at the mental health. And this is just to demonstrate just how much higher those female statistics are. So reporting that their mental health was most of the time or always not good. The Vermont average is 35. in the SU is 41, so it's higher in the SU, but females are up to 60, which is much higher, and males are down to 18. And the risk across the grades is about the same. Having been bothered or feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge most of the time or always. Again, state 36, SU 43. So statistically, this asterisk indicates statistically significant difference from the state. And then again, very much higher in the female population. Feeling sad and hopeless, 30% at the state, 40% at the SU, 54 among the female population. And then this chart, that's high school. Down here is the middle school. So we see statistically significant differences here within, again, females. It's the same across the SU as the state here. Well, I should say not statistically significant, that their mental health was most of the time always not good. But the anxiety, feeling sad and hopeless, and let's see, there we go, ever done something to someone, I'm sorry, ever done something to purposely hurt themselves without wanting to die, such as cutting or burning themselves on purpose, much higher in the SU middle school than the state. And the disparity is even higher among males in the district. But again, seeing that bump in females as well. And then other indicators of note here for bullying. Here, most of the time are always treated badly or unfairly because of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, or age, much higher in the SU compared to the state, particularly among females. And that's where the statistical significance is there. And then down here, electronically bullied, were bullied or bullied someone. All three indicators at the SU are statistically significantly higher than at the statewide levels, and females being bullied at higher rates. So just talking a little bit about prevention of substance use, what's happening to decrease the risk and increase protective factors. We at Mount Escutney and our community health department have been partnering with WSESU leadership and the principals on a monthly basis to talk about risk and how we can bring resources. We have a new student assistance professional at the high school this year, Rachel Losby. Universal prevention strategy. There is a best practice approach through the LEAD program, stands for Law Enforcement Against Drugs. It's like DARE, but everyone knows that DARE didn't work. And so LEAD actually does have some evidence base behind it. And the law enforcement are partnering with school professionals to teach the curriculum Too Good for Drugs and Too Good for Violence. So the evidence base is behind those two curriculums. That's going to be delivered this year in grades 3 and 8. We had a guest speaker, John Broderick, come speak to the students a couple months ago about their mental health. He met with the students and just trying to overcome that the stigma around mental health, and that's okay to come forward if you're struggling. It's okay to talk to people. It's not a sign of weakness. And he's just really trying to help students overcome and help people reach out. And a middle school parent group was started at the end of last year. So how do we support students most at risk? Really looking at inclusivity, making sure students and everybody feel that they matter and that they feel safe, creating safe spaces, teaching and lifting up the value of individual and cultural differences. The ally versus allyship, there's a subtle difference there. Being an ally is having a strong, genuine concern for marginalized populations and acknowledging that challenges exist. But allyship is having a physical presence where you're demonstrating or showing, if examples are pride flags, or if you're doing advocacy or self-educating, what are, leaning a little bit deeply into our own internal and implicit biases and noticing those, and then doing more education to overcome those, displaying pronouns, and speaking up. Obviously addressing bullying and incivility, the screening and treatment, screening and treatment for symptoms of trauma. Those are, having the SAP in the school is a really big help for that. SAPs tend to work, they can, do universal prevention strategies across all grades, but they tend to also work with students who are at a little bit higher risk or who may be struggling, and can do some screening tools and referral to treatment if that's needed. And addressing specifically suicidality in LGBTQ plus populations. Just wanted to share this resource. The Trevor Project is one of the world's largest suicide prevention and crisis intervention organization for LGBTQ young people. There's some marketing material. We could work with the school to just, get some cards out in student lounge areas or in restrooms. It is a connection to a free crisis counselor 24/7, and kids can text start to a phone number. Hear aloud, get a live voice on the phone, or just do chatting. So that's a really good resource. So when you receive this PowerPoint slide, I hope you will. We have updated our data dashboard. So we have all of our YRBS, I shouldn't say all of them, most of the substance use related YRBS indicators on our data dashboards, and you can read the full YRBS report at this link. And I've also included my phone number and my email. If you want to follow up, I'll also pop that in the chat for all of you. And I'm going to turn that off so I can see you all again, because it's really weird not being able to see you all. So yeah, happy to take any questions or thoughts.
So I had one question, and I think I might have asked this when you showed this to Manasquatney School District too, but when in the slide where it talked about further education plans, do you recall how that's defined in the survey? I think that it was broader than just college, but
It was, yes. It included tech. It included tech education. Thank you for reminding me that. I do have it. I don't have it right in front of me, but I can find it while we're in this meeting. But I can, yes, it was like your traditional 4-year college or a tech school. It also included apprenticeships and things like that.
okay, it's good to know. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a question. When you were talking about protective factors, in the survey, how is that broken down? Is it protective factors in the school setting, protective factors in the home? Because that's probably real helpful in helping move forward
Yeah.
areas that can be supported.
Yep. So when we look at protective factors in the world of substance use prevention, we look at a framework called asset development, and that's, again, the more, if you can develop assets within youth, then the more assets they have, the less risk they engage in. The Youth Risk Behavior Survey has a very small section that is asking about protective factors. One of them is youth feeling they matter to the community. The other is, do they have one adult that they feel cares about them in school? So the first, a community setting, the second was a school setting, and I'm going to forget the third one. Since it didn't make it into the report here, my guess is that the responses of students in those 3 protective factors indicators were not statistically significantly different than across the state. That being said, we could arrange a follow-up presentation for this, or for one of the schools or whatever. We do have an asset development presentation, like what are assets? There's internal and external, there's 40 of each. It's really kind of a deep dive. But there are very tangible things that you can do to increase protective factors among students. And some of them are very easy, like look you in the eye and smile at someone, or, having dinner at home 3 nights a week is a protective factor. Engaging youth voice and decision making is a protective factor. So there are a lot of them, but the Youth Risk Behavior Survey has a very, I think, they just don't ask. I was going to say shallow, but that's a bad word. I don't mean that they're shallow. I just mean that there's not many of them. So I think there's other ways to look at protective factors. I would say too, I want to say like 15 years ago, Weathersfield School, I think there is an actual protective factor survey. YRBS data tends to look at risk, but there is a school-based survey you can do to look at youth assets in the community and then engage in an intentional asset building plan. And that's something we've done in this district, I think in at least 2 schools in the past.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was a long answer, but I love to talk about assets.
We do have a group of high school students going to Getting to Y, October 16th, with several staff members. So once they dig into the data, we're hoping to have them come and present some ideas for helping change the trends that aren't positive.
That's great.
Yeah. And Melanie has helped us get funding for that because it's not free. So Mount Scottney has been a great partner.
I've got a question. Molly, the survey that you just mentioned that focuses specifically on protective factors, is that something that your office administers, or is it just something that you know of?
In the past, it was when we administered it before, it was a collaboration. Much of the work that we do is a collaboration with the school because it's a lot to launch anything through a school and, notifying the parents and things like that. So it's always a collaboration. Generally, we tend to try to find ways to fund that and then help with distilling the data after the results are back and then helping to facilitate the action planning with the school or community or parents afterwards. So, that could be something we could, Christine, you and I could talk about that. I'd have to, like I said, it's been quite some time. So I'm assuming that the Search Institute still does those pieces, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm happy to follow up and look into that.
Thank you.
Great, yeah.
So I just found the language about the plans after school. So the way it's worded is students report they are most likely to attend a 4-year college or university, a community college, or technical school after high school. So I think I sort of said that, but I think I made up the apprenticeship part, so I apologize for that. Sounded good.
Is there any comparable question about employment plans, or is that kind of out of the scope of this?
There is not a comparable question that I shouldn't say that. I'm only looking at indicators that got pulled out as statistically significant. So,
Okay.
Christine, if you could just,
Yeah.
if I can find that answer, I'll just get it back to you. And if you could share it with this group, that I'll put it on my list of follow-ups.
Sure thing. All right. I think you answered all the questions, Melanie.
Thank you.
Okay.
So you're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to just hang up and get back to your evening.
Yeah, I have to go pick somebody up from a soccer game, so I'm gonna go. But thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie.
Okay, I'm gonna just present now. All right, in the beginning, there we go. Just before I get started, Mount Scottney has been wonderful to work with. They meet with us every month. They're paying for a lot of things that we have in place. So it's been a great collaboration. Okay. I am bringing back the board operating principles. I shared them with you last month. I said I would bring them back for your adoption. I don't think it has to be formal, but I did change the last one, the new language is there that we talked about last time. And so I don't know that we need a formal vote, but just an agreement that this is how we operate, or we agree to operate.
Be interesting to see. I mean, it's not a policy, it's not a, yeah, it's not a, it's just sort of,
Just
I
our,
do like the change to the last one.
yeah,
Were we going to talk about who or add in who the stakeholders are presumed to be?
yes, I think I did that, but if I
Yes.
missed a spot. I did them on bullet number 4, Elizabeth, but not on
Oh, okay,
5.
sorry.
Yeah, then that's okay, I should have done both and I didn't, so.
I like that the state is not in there.
You like that?
I did like that,
All right, so,
thank you.
well, yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I did add the procedures in the portal. I'm not gonna go over them, but if there are questions, I'm happy to take them. These two are pretty self-explanatory. One was for transportation, basically, stating that kids need to, follow the rules on the bus as well. I won't pull it up. It's a very short one. And then the English learners procedures, Angie vetted again. It's what we do with our ELL population, and we have 6 this year. Yeah, I know.
2, 4, 6, potentially 7.
7. Which is new for us. We've had years with none, so, yeah. Okay. I just wanted to put a plug out to you all. I hope the graphic starts to unload. It is the fall workshop for boards and superintendents and administrators is supporting student success through school district governance. It's at Lake Maury, October 26th and 27th. I will be there if anybody can attend. That would be lovely. You don't have to stay. You can come for parts or all or whatever you can do.
But you have to
Register.
register, but board chairs have to do a
Yes.
certain amount of training, and I think board members have to do a certain amount of training as well, but
I think it's
board
8.
chairs-
I think it's 8
board
hours.
chairs-
Yeah.
board chairs have to do
Yeah, 8 hours. So this would get you your 8 hours for sure.
So exciting.
It's usually a really good conference, actually. All right, so that was just a plug for that. If you're interested, please just email Lori and she'll get you registered. I wanted to bring back feedback on the vision mission statements that were created last year with the help of Mike Nicholson. We did not get a huge amount of feedback from community, but most of it was very positive towards the draft vision and mission statement. And that was for the vision statement. If I could just read, there we go. And then this is the follow-up is the mission statement. Staff also had an opportunity to weigh in. Theirs was in comment form. We didn't have a ton of people weigh in again, but the feedback was pretty positive from the staff. The question being, you know, these are great. How are we going to make sure, how are we going to know we're getting there, doing them? Which is a great question. So we did make one change, which I'm going to point out on the next slide. So I think it was oh, geez, sorry, that just very fast. It was, the mission statement did say WSESU is a diverse community of learners. I'm sorry, a community of diverse learners where, and so we took that out of the header statement and we added a bullet, diversity is celebrated and everyone is included. That seemed to be more inclusive language. And our next steps are, Angie is going to be working on, she's drafted a learning framework, which is one of the strategic plan strategies that we're supposed to be doing. It's been vetted a little bit with some staff, a group of staff. So she's going to update the learning framework to reflect these new statements and then work in small groups, building-based groups to get more feedback from staff. Is that correct, Angie? I got that right?
That sounds right.
So you'll have the entire learning framework with this embedded. I think your goal is by mid-year.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have that January report.
Yeah, so it'll be in there. Okay.
Christine, where have students, where do the students come in terms of
Weighing in on this?
weighing in on this and yeah,
Um,
and being part of that decision making?
Yep, that's a great question. We do have the Student Lighthouse team in the works, and that will be a team that Angie brings the learning framework to for kids, students or high school students to weigh in on.
Yeah.
And that group, we set up this summer. There are about 18 students who want to be part of it, which is great. The staff was looking at the list and we were chatting about it, and they really feel like the students, we need a more representative group of students. So we're going to be including some other students. So we don't have a final list yet, but recognizing that we need to hear all voices. So you'll see that again. Okay, I should have a drum roll. Here's the results of the first question of the month for September, which was, what is your preferred method of receiving information from and communicating with your child's school? And 55.6% prefer email. A good portion appreciate text message and robocalls. So really, we've learned that a letter, website, and social media are not our preferred methods of communicating with and with our parents. So it's good information. I did ask Mike Walker, our technology director, if parents can receive text messages, and Larry's here to let me know if I get it right. If a parent signs up with when they're giving their information in PowerSchool or School Messenger, if they give their cell phone number, they're able to receive text messages. If they don't, they're not. Did I get it right?
If we send that out via school messenger.
Yeah.
Which we have in the past.
If we send a message out that way.
If we send it out that way, in
Yeah.
addition to email and robocall. So
So,
we can do it, we have the capability to do it.
Yep. Which I think we should do.
And text messages at one of the most successful methods at Hartford is sending out a text message that an
Okay.
email has been sent.
Oh, okay,
Or that,
Yep.
the newsletter has been emailed or
okay.
newsletter link.
And give the URL.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Okay.
if you hyperlink to
Is it possible, how do you know what you signed up for, because it was so long ago? How do you get into PowerSchool to change your,
Well, there's two ways. You can go into PowerSchool and then see your demographic information, but if you don't remember your login to PowerSchool, email parentaccess@wscsu.net and they'll help you.
okay, thank you.
Christine, I'm concerned about people who don't have a telephone or don't have a computer. I know that there are some people, that go into our local library because they don't have either. And it becomes a way for them to get information, even on the town manager's newsletter.
Yeah.
And so I don't wanna just eliminate letters because.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
No,
because
no.
all right,
Yeah, it's nice to know what people check the most.
Yeah.
What's preferred,
Yeah.
but yeah.
What you find is that what you find though is that when you survey who has what, for those who don't have a computer or internet access, almost all of them have a cell phone.
Phone.
That's pretty much a universal tool.
but it can be a cell phone that's not, it can be one of those phones that you can buy $15 minutes.
The track
Right.
phone.
Right,
Yeah.
but they still get text messages.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Can students get notifications through school messenger?
Right now, the way it's set up, no, they would get it through email, but not through school messenger.
Okay.
The website or social media.
Yep.
Which essentially is the same thing.
Yeah.
But I can look into that and maybe filter it out per grade,
Yeah,
maybe high school.
because if parents are working like weird shifts and you're in high school, you may not get the memo that school is canceled. It's just
I I never miss that one.
That one comes out.
The robocall.
That one's on the news, the robocall.
But
You would check.
there are kids that.
For the radio.
Or the news.
It's WCAX. Yeah, no, I think if we could, I'll look in the school messenger if there's a way to
Okay.
grab the student email field, which we all have.
Mhm.
So that's in PowerSchool.
Yeah.
And I would just have to find a way to get in the school messenger and then filter it out for grade. And then it would determine,
When do you
Lori,
use it?
when,
Yeah.
which ones to select that list.
Right.
So can teachers through PowerSchool message their classes?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a classroom messenger.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. So, I'm gonna move to the next question of the month for October. And, Colleen, I'm sorry, Colleen had her hand up, I can't.
Thanks. Just real quick, one of the things that I just thought of that's come up in last couple of days even for us is that when we receive emails that don't include the school name in the sender, we miss it. We get too much mail and it looks like it gets by us.
So in
Just
the
something to think about. I got one
It's-
from Hartford the other day for open house that didn't say the word Hartford in it anywhere. Like I had no idea. We had to kind of guess where it was, where I was supposed to go.
do you know how hard it is to train administrators at Hartford?
I totally get it. It was just funny to me. I'm like, I'm scanning it. I'm like, I'm sure this is from my high school. There was nothing in it that, not even secretary
One
of.
high level administrator really struggles, but I always get these phone calls or emails saying, none of these messages went out. And I'm like, that's because it's summer. There are no active students, so you can't click active students when you send that message.
That's funny.
There are a lot of-
Hartford does some things that are really great, a lot of it. And that text message thing to remind me, to tell me that there's an email, I love
good.
that.
Okay, that's good feedback. Okay, here's the draft of the, I'm gonna share this tab instead. This was about, and I don't know if we captured what you were thinking, but we did put in the header there. Did you know that you can email parent access at WSESU for help in setting up your PowerSchool account? Because we know parents don't always know that. And we were gathering some data on report cards. And so let me know if this is what you were thinking. I think it came from you, Bill. What is your preference for learning about how your child is doing in school? So PowerSchool mobile app, which we have.
Yes.
Monthly updates from your child's teacher, a physical report card, which we don't currently print report cards. Parents have to go on PowerSchool and see them. Or PowerSchool web application.
Could we possibly send this out as a ranked,
Yeah.
ranked choice?
Yeah.
I feel like that actually might get us better data.
Yep, that's true.
Also,
Yep.
the header, Christine, you might want to add .NET to parent access at
You
WSESU.
think so? Okay.
I
Yeah,
know what you mean.
is there anything else missing or?
For me, I think that's a good starting point.
Okay. Somebody had their hand up. I can't see the screen
It's
now.
Beth.
Beth?
Yeah, I'm not sure, like, I think of it, like, I go to a physical report card to get some like written commentary about my kid, versus checking PowerSchool is more like where, like, what are they missing and what's going on? Like, so it's like PowerSchool I find is more like an immediate thing, whereas a report card is, I guess, more, I expect human to live in a little more in-depth color there. So it's almost like, I don't know if it's fair to compare them because I look at them differently. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
But we haven't done report cards in years.
no,
I know, and I'll tell you honestly, I miss that. I don't feel like I hear, like, I don't feel like I get what I normally would from feedback from teachers other than physically going and seeing them.
for in-person conferences.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which makes it hard at the end of the year because you haven't had an in-person conference since March. at the end of the year and you're like,
What happened?
that happened.
Well, this is a good question, it's a great question, right?
Could we put a comment field in this too, since it
Yeah.
seems like there's some
Yeah,
some good nuance to it?
absolutely.
Elizabeth?
Email address.
Sorry, is this I'm concerned that monthly updates from the teacher may be super onerous for
For
teachers.
the teachers.
And I'm sure that every parent would love to have monthly updates from the
Mhm.
teacher, but I do not wanna put that on the teachers. I don't think that's fair.
So maybe it's
Whatever.
Regularly.
regular,
Regular.
and then you can leave it, is that?
If they're doing what they're supposed to be doing on PowerSchool, then
Yeah,
Or maybe you can, just do away with the word monthly.
yeah, updates from teacher,
Mm.
yeah.
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 It's less prescriptive.
it's
Oftentimes,
still, updates from teachers still implies that the teacher will provide an update for every student.
mhm.
And it's very broad.
Is it more like comments on a report card from teachers?
There is comments
Yeah.
in PowerSchool used to lesser or greater degrees depending on the teacher.
Right.
I've never seen a not one.
And I don't think that all teachers necessarily even use PowerSchool, so it would be nice to have that administered evenly across.
Can you,
That would be my preference would be making sure that PowerSchool is updated regularly by all teachers,
did you say that you think there are teachers that aren't using PowerSchool?
yes.
Good to know.
Well,
Or not, at least not until the day before the end of the school year.
The trimester, or,
One-
yeah, okay.
one reason I brought up report cards is not just how information is communicated, but also, what standards are
Right.
we're using within.
Yep.
And I think just like 150 different standards within PowerSchool.
It's too many,
There's too many.
it's too many.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
And
have the kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
And it's also open to subjective interpretation by every.
well, that's true for most everything, but yeah.
So would it be better if if it was regular updates from teacher in PowerSchool? Or something to that effect?
Could we just say written communication from staff? Because that runs it and doesn't
Yeah.
block it into a time box.
What did you say?
When we
Angie?
switched to
That is an
standards-based
expect-
grading some years back, that's one of the reasons we got away from a physical report card, because the first time we did standards-based grading, it was like a 15, 20
Page.
page report card that many parents' feedback was, they weren't happy about it. So,
It's too much.
Well, the other big concern is
we save some trees.
I think our SU goals that we have are pretty impressive. And the standards within PowerSchool don't align with that.
Yeah.
They're Common Core standards, right? And which are dated at that, and just way too many of them. So,
There's way too many still, yeah. Okay.
I just have a quick question, like PowerSchool versus Google Classrooms. Like, cause I feel like there's like, I feel like I'm checking both types of things. Is there like, how are we doing? I guess, I don't understand, how are we reporting differently? Like, how are the Google Classrooms used differently than PowerSchool? Cause I feel like teachers are putting a lot more information into Google Classrooms.
PowerSchool is an SIS, Student Information System, and that's where the final grades should be going in the SIS, because that is what reports to the state. So legally, that's a requirement. Google Classroom is a learning management system.
I understand the difference, but I guess like I'm not understanding how our educators are using them differently, because I'm not seeing anything in PowerSchool, but I'm seeing stuff in Google Classroom, and where like how are teachers using them differently, And where can we, I don't know, I just don't want teachers to be having to do double duty and having to set up Google Classrooms and having, communicating with, parents through that. And then now having to go into PowerSchool and having to report and put, comments in there too. And like, how can we make sure it's not kind of competing, I guess?
Teachers choose to use Google Classroom. There's not an expectation. There is an expectation that they are putting grades into PowerSchool. Now, it's different for a kindergarten teacher than a middle school teacher.
Sure.
So
You
they're,
should be seeing some
yeah,
this week. You should, depending on the age of your student.
yeah, the first 6
Your
weeks of
child.
school will be
There
over.
should be
And,
something in PowerSchool at this juncture.
Yeah.
For all grades.
and I think the expectation is regularly, which, I mean, we've gone back and forth like once a week. Is that enough for parents to be able to have some feedback on how their student is doing? And that might work for a content teacher, but not a first grade teacher. So it's a little bit open-ended.
Right.
So,
So my concern with that is that what was just said is the fact that Google Classroom is not a standards-based grading platform, right? And this SU is a standards-based grading SU. So I'm not sure why parents are being reported through Google Classroom, which is not a grade book. It's not a student information system. It's
Bill, I mean, I'm not getting grades through there necessarily, but I'm getting a lot more feedback through Google Classroom than I am. Like PowerSchool is empty.
yeah,
you'll see the assignments. You can see comments on how your child is doing on the
Right.
assignments, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's where I go, where I know when to pester my children, not PowerSchool.
Yeah.
Can PowerSchool connect to Google Classroom?
Not so much because we're standards-based.
Yeah, I mean, we can't.
If we were traditional based, then yeah,
Right.
there would be some other ways to do it.
But can you put a Google Classroom assignment in a PowerSchool assignment?
Automatically syncing?
Not syncing, but in Infinite Campus, I can put in within the grade book
Oh, yeah.
a link to that Google Classroom assignment.
Yes,
Okay.
they
Yeah.
do that.
Okay.
And I think at varying degrees, depending on the teacher, I think at the high school
They
level,
do,
middle
yeah.
school, depending on the school, and depending on the individual teacher, I think we're small enough in SU, you do see a lot of differences.
Variation, yeah.
Yeah.
And some of that's appropriate.
Yeah.
So I've got, just to circle back, PowerSchool mobile app. We landed, I wrote down,
Written communications and staff.
written communication from staff. Do you feel like that captures?
I mean,
It's just a start.
right, I understand Elizabeth's concern. We don't want to give the appearance that we're going to mandate monthly, weekly.
Yeah.
Angie was
Reports
just
to-
saying it's in the staff handbook.
That there's
Right.
regular
For
reporting,
power.
that's the word we
Right.
used. We had a
Yeah.
discussion
Yeah.
about it this summer.
Right.
That regular reporting is the expectation
In PowerSchool.
in PowerSchool.
Right.
yes.
So we want to be
Is
in
it-
sync with our
Right, it may not
handbooks,
necessarily
you
be
know, we really
written,
do.
but it is regular to put grades in within PowerSchool to see how children are doing
Yeah.
against the standards. And the issue is that the standards are not particularly reportable, but I'm gonna take a step back because my ADHD will
Okay.
kick into that
So-
whole topic.
So written communication from staff or regular updates?
I think written communication.
Okay, written communication from staff.
Although, I think you should, if you're going to be putting one thing in the handbook, another
already
way
in
of
there.
repeating it would be by, and helping parents kind of like understand what's being said, it's like repeating it a second time.
Yep, and I can add another category, regular updates by staff in PowerSchool. And see if they like that. I mean, it's really to talk about preferences of the
Right.
parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here's a question. What do you plan to do with the information? I mean, if you got a physical report, you're not gonna go back to physical report cards.
I hope not.
Right, so why have it on there?
Well, my question is, granted, there's one thing called physical report cards, but why isn't there not
Electronic.
electronic report cards? That's what we
I
do
mean,
at
that's what we
Hartford.
do. We should change it to electronic report cards.
Yeah.
Although, to Nikki's point, it's out there.
Yeah. Just do a report card.
I could just do a report card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could just take that off there. Yep.
When do they, or like when they tend to come out anyway, so
Yeah.
that's what, like quarterly,
Yeah, well, when you're in a standards-based system, you're always working towards a standard, right? So it's a work in progress all year long for some
Got it.
standards. So you get, I think we arbitrarily have trimesters where you want to take a peek and see how your child is doing.
okay, so you're like trimester.
Progressing toward
Right.
that standard,
It's
yeah.
nice to take a snapshot. and say,
Yeah.
This is where they're at.
Yeah.
That would be, I mean, I can't imagine that would that be terribly complicated? Can you do it backwards and get PowerSchool to just send it once a?
We have not had report cards, physical or otherwise, in many years. We'd have to, we would, if we were gonna go back to report cards, physical or otherwise, we would have to work on it. That would be new
Just
to
have it
us.
do a snapshot once every.
It's like the quick lookup.
Well, I get snapshots weekly, automated for my daughter from PowerSchool,
Right.
but I'm a pretty tech savvy parent.
Right. So my question is, when you're considering what you're planning to do with the information, I would suggest, I think that, thanks to Larry driving me towards it, I think we should get every parent to use the PowerSchool mobile app because it is so good. And that, you could drive through the question, you could drive parents towards the mobile app.
My daughter's grade change, and I get a notification. I don't have to wait for a trimester.
Yeah, my son is late for class. I know it.
Yeah.
Don't give my mom.
Okay, we should do some education on that front.
So just thinking
Maybe
about,
that's what needs to happen though. Maybe you need to,
Maybe we
before
put
doing this, you need to
new.
educate folks to be
How
able
new
to.
is it?
Well, it's pretty new. Pre-COVID, I used to do trainings regularly at all
Yeah.
the schools for the
Yes.
parents. You guys might
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
So we could go back to that. I think there's a lot of parents that aren't aware of what's available to them.
I
Now
would
you can
put,
do it online.
I would put
Yeah.
app dash new.
Yeah.
Which
PowerSchool mobile app dash new.
Or
Okay.
parentheses new.
Yeah, it is new, actually. It looks
So that-
different this year.
So that parents are like, oh, what, new?
Okay.
it sounds like the,
I have a question. I mean, I'm not a PowerSchool enthusiast. I'll admit it. And I struggle. The app I have downloaded like, I don't know, 8 times and it just doesn't work great for me. And so I've unloaded it, downloaded it 1,000,000 times. And so I guess for me, I'm looking for, when I look at the PowerSchool, all I'm seeing is numbers, black and white, like 1 through 4. That's it. I'm looking for color, I guess, as a parent. I want the color commentary of my students' education. Because the 1 to 4 doesn't give me much. And I guess that's what I'm missing in PowerSchool is that color commentary. And I'm not sure where we can get that.
It's definitely in there, Beth. You just have to.
I just looked
know-
at my kids' postcard. I'm like, I have a tab open. I was just looking at their report card or whatever the grades from last year. And it was just 1 through 4s. That's all I got. So I don't know if I need to go to class myself or if that's.
If I go to, a student's grade and it's a 2.5, for example, for a final grade of, if it's math 9 or math 8, I guess it would be better than algebra.
Mhm.
And I can click on that, I can dig in and I can see, all right, well, she's struggling with functions, but she's doing okay with, another part of algebra. So it's there. And I do think training could help.
Yeah.
I think emailing a PDF of a report card to me is no different than printing one. So
Right.
I think it's a lot more interactive and it's up to date. The second you send that report card, it's only as good as till the next grade goes in the system, which could be 2 days later. And high school could be a few hours later.
Right.
But isn't the report card available in the app?
It is a report card. That's what I'm trying to get at. I mean, it's
And
whatever.
can you tell me where would I look to find the report card then? Because I thought I was looking at the report cards and I'm just seeing my grade history of both my children, and there's tabs all the way to 2016. But I just see numbers. I don't get anything beyond that.
Beth?
It's Beth.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't I email you offline, I'll help you with it.
Yeah, that would be great. I just, yeah.
Okay.
Not-
Okay.
Just to get a thought out about this survey question, it sounds to me like we've coalesced around the idea that the purpose, the way that we're using this data is to figure out who is utilizing PowerSchool, and then we want to drive parents towards using PowerSchool. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So my recommendation then, if that's how we want to use the data, could you pull the question up again?
Yeah.
I'm just missing it
Yeah.
here. If that's our goal with this, I think instead of saying, what is your preference for learning about how your child is doing in school, we should say, how are you currently learning about how your child is doing in school?
Okay.
Because preference opens it up to
Yeah.
things that we're either not gonna go back to doing,
Yeah.
or we just don't, I mean, I think we've kind of established that we don't wanna do that.
Yeah.
So let's do, how are you currently accessing it, and then have that notes.
And if a parent is getting a report card, then we know that they're.
Sure, yeah, well, I think we take the things off that don't exist, and we say, how are you currently accessing your students' data? Rank them, and then say, what are your comments? And that will actually give us usable data to be able to drive parents towards what we wanna do.
So,
Yeah.
All right, we got it.
Davis, thank you, great idea. And that is a wonderful transition to,
You want me to stop talking? Okay, I just want to say one thing before, I know we've gone over. Just a quick update, health integration specialist, it's really Angie's job to coordinate the curriculum. So she's going to take that on. And I just listed some other things that we are doing to cover health at this time, but it's a topic we need to revisit. The nurses are going to hold, so that's, sum that up in one word. They're going to hold on the SU model until they're just not ready, which is fine. And then Larry just wanted to let you know, the process has started, and this is the timeline. Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you, Bill, for holding us to time. I appreciate that.
I did have
I'm
those
trying
two
to
slides.
Oh, yes,
That you're welcome to read at your leisure.
it's just where we're at with
Updates
curriculum.
on the curriculum implementation. They show up when you click, because there was a lot of text on it.
But you all have access, it's linked on the
So,
agenda.
yes.
So you can read it. Okay,
so,
I will stop sharing.
and next on the administrative report, I've asked that Katie join
Yep.
us. And I want to state sort of, for the record and everyone listening, that I think it's important for us as an SU to dive deeper into special services so that we can find ways to support Katie and special services as much as we can. One, I'm not judging Katie, because I think she does an amazing job, and I feel very lucky that this SU has her. But two, as the board, it's one of our responsibilities to finance special services and make sure that we have the people in place. So this is just the starting point.
So, I was asked to do a report out on staffing. My first slide, sorry, Bill deviates slightly, because I just had to go to the second slide. This is cause for celebration. We are no longer in targeted level 3. You knew about indicator 11. We were one of 5 districts that met 100% in the SU, in the state.
Excellent.
And as of Friday, 100% of our transition plans, we took the early bird special, and I'm not kidding you, that's basically what they named it, to get out of targeted 3. All of our plans have passed. We are still in cyclical monitoring, but I have never been happier to be downgraded in my entire life. So that's how I'm looking at it, that we went back to cyclical. So,
Okay.
big team with big teamwork. So
And that takes a lot of work off Katie's shoulders.
it takes the big giant book report that Kathy and I were gonna have to do off.
Yeah.
It just had, we are very grateful for everyone's work, so.
Okay.
So team effort, yes.
Thank you.
So staffing updates. So we ended up, the next slide, there we go. I should probably put it up on my screen so I can see what I'm doing. we are still in need of 7 support staff across the SU. We are interviewing as fast as I can, getting applications in for people that are viable, and then getting them onboarded, which includes checking references and then our onboarding process. So basically, from the time we get somebody that we think would be viable, interview them, it's a 3-week to 4-week process. It's a minimum 2 weeks once we get stuff to Tina. So it's not instant. Currently, we have a need for 3 in the middle school or elementary in Windsor, 2 in Heartland. One's being officially onboarded, 1 is in process, 2 in Weathersfield, which also includes that we've asked for an HCRSBI and we're waiting for them to find somebody. So right now we're piecing things together with great help from one of our BCBAs. The reason why, we had some resignations right before school started. We've had one since we have started. I'll skip absences for a second. We have hired some great people, but they have very part-time schedules because we're taking people as they can and being as flexible as we can. And they're great folks. It's just not full-time, which affects student programs. We had some new students come in. New students that came in with many more needs. This was a year, unlike last year, where we had kids come in that it was surprise, out of state. IEPs that don't match what kids were actually given, things along those lines. So we're learning as everybody else is learning about them, and putting supports in place as fast as possible. The other is we've had some student needs change. Kids coming back that were not as stable, not as needing more than what we thought they would need given where they left last year. And also sometimes we do have some wishful thinking, I'll put out there. I got that too, I know. And one of the biggest things, we heard this a lot last year, I think probably mostly from a couple of buildings, building our bench of staff because of absences. When support staff are absent, the domino is significantly felt, especially if it's 2 support staff that are one-on-ones, for example. We have students that, we are not, and I will hope never will be, an SU that says a kid has to stay home because someone isn't here. That happens places, mostly in the other parts of the country, but every once in a while, I've heard it around here. So part of this building of the staff part is building up enough of a bench. So if someone's out, we have some shifting and moving. So the other absence, so that's support staff. The other vacancies, we're still a half-time high school special educator. We've sort of filled the other half with the middle school, high school reading specialist, which was a great find, by the way. That's been wonderful. We just had a resignation of the one of the interventionists within the ACE classroom. So that add is up. And we will have a leave of absence for an SLP in the SU from mid-December till mid-March.
What's
which we have.
SLP?
Speech language pathologist. Sorry, I should have not put my acronyms in there. We're actively with posting, internal posting, external postings, as well as all of the recruiters we've dealt with in the past have been well aware of that since summer.
Now, do you have a speech language pathologist consultant that you're working with, or is that a different position?
We have one speech language pathologist for the Mount Scottney schools that is a remote SLP providing services remotely. We have one in-person SLP who is split 4 days between Weathersfield and Heartland. And we have a full-time pre-K SLP who works with all of our pre-Kers in all the places that they are, which is 4 towns and everywhere, including our own pre-K. And then we have a 2-day-a-week evaluator who's an SLP who does all our evaluations, which takes that off the SLP's plate so that they can provide services.
So with the remote SLP, is it a goal, hopefully in the future, to move away from having a role?
We kept the ad up. If the AOE asks if the position's filled, it's filled. Because that's, Larry leaves as soon as I remember to invoke Larry's name. But staffing wise, it's considered a filled position. If we find an in-person person, there's a severability clause in our contract because it's a contracted service. Um,
60 days, I think.
it's actually 30. I can double check. Some people are 60, some are 30. At minimum though, we were looking at close to 45 to 60 days between finding somebody, onboarding somebody, and overlap.
Right.
So.
I mean, I'm not necessarily saying it's realistic for this year, but.
That is our
Hopefully.
primary concern, to get a full-time in-person person.
Right.
A fully 100%. It was a hard thing to do, and we did not onboard that person until, actually, I was on vacation in August. Because I waited until the last minute to say yes, because we just didn't have a choice. Somebody said something.
Megan.
Hi, Katie. It's Megan. I was just curious if you could speak a little bit to, I know there was talk, I think at the last meeting of Montescutney meeting, which obviously you weren't at, about an adult being with the students in the SLP rooms and how that is working. Do you speak to that a little bit?
Our K2s students always have an adult with them to help facilitate what's going on in the speech services. Right now, that is one person who'd been assigned to K, which actually helps with carryover. We're looking at shifting that up once we bring a couple other people on, so that person will still be doing probably K1. And then other students that are older, several already have one-to-ones, so that adult's the one that takes them. So in at Albert Bridge, they have it arranged, so if it's a younger student, some is directly in the room supporting them. If it's like an older student, they can sit there and work for services, the door's left open, and an adult's right there. So, and that seems to be going pretty smoothly. I think the kids are figuring out, the adults working together. Kirsten, who is our SLP, has been working very closely with both staffs, including sending materials up, talking to them outside of the sessions of what's gonna go on and other things. So, I mean, it's been a learning curve, but from what I understand, it's gone well. And I've stopped in and been around when things are going on too.
Are you trying to get feedback from, I don't know how many students you have that are in this boat, but are you trying to get feedback also from the parents on what they're seeing, you know, with the child when they come home?
We've had several parent meetings over the past couple of weeks with families who had questions. Kirsten is also, a big part of that was Kirsten meeting and how students are progressing on IEP goals. The nice thing is we have a framework to go from. The framework is how students are progressing on their IEP goals and keeping that communication like we would with an in-person person. Double think. So that actually, and maybe in some way, it's increased, in all honesty, because as we're learning something new, that it's a little bit like, hey, let's find out how this is going, and maybe a little bit more than somebody who's an in-person person. So yeah. And I think families have felt, as far as I understand it, have been contacting, and I've been part of lots of those conversations. And Kirsten keeps me in the loop for any email communications going on, just so that I know what kind of questions are being asked.
Is that your last slide, Katie?
That I only did two.
Okay.
I was told short, so
Yep.
I do short. Thank you.
What is an evaluator?
Someone who does all the assessments, the testing to understand a student's learning profile.
Okay.
So that's her whole job.
Can I ask another question?
Megan.
Yes, Megan.
The SLP that will be out, is that how it, like, I was just curious how that's gonna affect. Is that like the evaluator that's gonna be out? Is it the, because it would
It's
just be a big difference, like of which one it is.
Our Weathersfield and Heartland SLP will be the one on the leave of absence. And so that's who's gonna be out. The only one I know that's gonna be out.
Have you reached out to other districts if they might have a part-time person that we could borrow?
Get them full-time.
I know, I had to ask that with a straight face.
That's right. I'm sorry, we are all in the same boat,
I
and
know.
I just, it is, we are, and I know this sounds hard, and I am always optimistic, and you folks are very used to that for me. We are in much better condition than many of our surrounding districts. We don't have any remote special educators. That might be a way we have to go at some point, but we don't have 3 remote SLPs. We actually have positions that we actually have people. When I did this out and I kept going back, double checking, and do we really have all these professionals? We really do. But yes, I'm not minimizing the question. It's just,
I mean,
it's the
just so
hardest.
everyone knows the reality, last year Hartford hired, I think, 2 or 3 full-time teachers just to fill para positions. Needs in the elementary schools.
And if we had the opportunity, that's sort of why we put up the ad for both either an interventionist, anybody with a teaching certification to be able to help with special ed. And we've managed to recruit some amazing people.
Right.
We're incredibly
Done a good
fortunate.
job, yeah.
And
That's a great idea, though. I mean, if you can't get someone that has
Well,
a minimum,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying
It's an
do that, but.
expensive alternative.
Yeah,
I'm sure
it's not an
expensive.
idea I wanna
You
float
wanna know,
out
You
there.
don't want to float it, but I
Really,
think that,
really expensive option.
yeah, but I
But
think we want to make sure that our kids get what they
It-
need to be successful.
Well, last-
But
the last plug though, our principal's been phenomenal. People have applied for perma subs. They've been like, wait, they really want this. And then there's been a few of them have come our way from new para hires that originally asked to be a perma sub. And they're now going to be paraprofessionals instead of, so like there's a sharing of whoever we're getting for applicants, because they all see collectively, all of us together, what the need is. So I know you mentioned earlier about supporting Katie, but there's a lot of things I do that nobody knows, you know that. But it's,
I mean, you
we're
need
in
an
it admin
assistant.
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I do.
It's advertised still, if
Yeah.
you know anyone.
Well, I do, but she won't listen
I
to me.
know.
I already tried putting one of them back already.
Looks like Megan has her hand up again.
Megan?
Yes, I'm sorry. I just have one more question. I was just curious if there has been any exit interviews or any information on or feedback of why like some of the special educators have left in the past, or if there's trends or things we can do to help support.
We have done exit interviews. We've had actually very few special education teaching staff leave for reasons other than I'm moving out of the area, and other things. The most recent changes we've had over the past couple of years, we have made sure we've done exit interviews if individuals choose to do so. So, and the feedback's been good, and we're using it to the best of our ability to continue to grow and change. Lots of things that we've done this year are in response to that, which includes a lot more face-to-face time than, I'll go back to Bill's, I really needed an assistant. Just, I'm one person, and there's a lot to fill and do. So, but yeah, and we're gonna continue to do so, Megan, as well as with support staff. It's not, we do exit interviews for both.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you, Katie.
Yes, thank you, Katie. Thanks.
I'm gonna stop sharing now. Is that good?
There is no assistant director of student support services,
Currently, there is no director of student support services.
and that's something that has not.
It wasn't filled. We did not have any applicants.
Oh my God.
No, that's actually kind of unfortunately the reality of special education right now.
Yeah, that's not unusual.
Tracy's next.
Okay,
I have no
Okay,
focus.
I'm gonna call for-
operational diversity, equity, and inclusion. So Tracy, we've been a little scattered in here, and I apologize.
Tracy,
No
do
worries.
you-
Y'all have so much going on. Yeah, Christine, if you have the slides, is that what you're? Yeah, that'd be great. And I also just want to note we're here talking about belonging, but like we're going to try and squeeze it into like, a little bit of time. And so it's a noticing that you all do have so much, like packing your schedules and stuff for these meetings. Is this the best place for us to reserve those 20 minutes? Is it a both and? Do we reserve the time now? And also consider like, where else is this work happening? Where else is the work happening where you all are in relationships with each other, where you're in relationships with people in the community? So really, this is just an opportunity to think about what does this theme of belonging really mean for you all in your role as leaders. So thank you in advance to folks who engaged with some pre-work. I tried, I was thinking if y'all can do some pre-work in between sessions, when we come into these sessions, we can use the 20 minutes. I can share back like a summary of what you all did or what you all shared. And then maybe that'll help us make the most of our time. Not sure. We're trying it out tonight. We'll see how it goes. So thank you to the about 50% of the board who did some of the pre-work. If you didn't do any of the pre-work, I'll still share all the resources for you. You can do it after this meeting. And so again, it's like this irony of talking about belonging when only really half of you like shared your thoughts and feelings about it, but that's okay. Please feel free to engage like in the conversation as we go through this. So Christine, if you don't mind, please sharing the next slide. So these are just a couple updates, was also something that I said that I would share with you all. One is we started developing a DEI resource library. So there's a link that's going to be available to everybody. We've got a bunch of books. They were through some of the ESSER grant funds. So we started compiling some they're like classroom resources, and they're also just books in case like, oh, maybe people want to do a book club. We can start to do that. So we're going to have this library. Check out the link. You should be able to check and see the catalog without having to sign in. So that's one update. Another one is, our in-service days for this year are pretty packed for teachers. And so we started talking about like, well, what are some other opportunities? Because we know teachers need some continuing ed credits. And so I just started compiling a whole bunch of different trainings, things that are like virtual trainings, things that are in person. So I'm starting to puzzle all those together and be able to share those out with teachers, sort of under the big umbrella of diversity, equity, inclusion, which could include things like restorative practices. I know there are a lot of folks who are interested in learning more about that. So are there trainings that they can access? Just building more inclusion in the classroom. I mean, other curriculum resources and stuff like that. So compiling all of that. Also, and please interrupt me, I'm just going to talk really fast through these updates because again, I know your time is precious. Started doing some monthly acknowledgements that are going to be, they have gone out in Christine's superintendent's email or in newsletter. And I know there's also an opportunity to connect with the DEI Windsor group because they were talking about at their last meeting doing some monthly acknowledgements. So it's like last month, actually we're still in the celebration of National Hispanic Heritage Month, which runs from September 15th to October 15th. And it's like finding all the ways that these themes can show up, whether it's in school, libraries, whether it's like at events. I mean, all the ways I think there's some possibility here, right? An opportunity over time for how we're not just doing this in the supervisory union, but how we're connecting to community. So just follow along with the acknowledgements. If you want to ever connect about them, please reach out to me. And then again, just, we're looking for places where DEI is already happening, trying to plan ahead for what in-service days could look like next year to weave in some of the topics that people are interested in learning more about. And also responding to like the data that you all are seeing, right? Or Katie, like what Katie was just sharing, there's a need for supports in our schools, especially for kids who have marginalized identities. So what does that mean, again, as we think about this whole theme of belonging, of inclusion, of where we need to be focusing, all that kind of stuff. Okay, and then I think, Christine, if you can just advance to the next one, that's just a more visual way of showing what some of these things look like that I already mentioned. Pause real quick. Anybody, questions, comments?
I like the idea of having the monthly acknowledgement. Because I think it really informs, educates, it's not giving you homework, it's just sharing. And I think it's good for the community, the students, everyone around to sort of like be on the same page on what's going on during the month with other groups and individuals.
Great. Thank you for that, Rebecca. And so this is a sneak peek, October, right? October, we have Indigenous Peoples Day. And I suspect there are a lot of people who are like, I mean, I met somebody randomly who was like, I still call it Columbus Day. And it's like, oh, it's Indigenous Peoples Day. It's like, you know, it's an opportunity to share. Here is how it became Indigenous Peoples Day and why it's actually a law in Vermont, you know, and then seeing like, oh, there's all these resources. There are local groups. There are teacher professional development opportunities. There's all these things that connect to that theme. Yes, Elizabeth.
Thank you. A couple of things about Indigenous Peoples Day and actually month. October is Indigenous Peoples Month in Vermont, but it's kicked off by Indigenous Peoples Day. But we actually have events that are going to go on through the Office of Racial Equity and the Human Rights Commission. And if you look on either of their websites, they'll have a whole list of stuff that's going on in the state of Vermont about Indigenous Peoples Month. And also, September 30th is Orange Shirt Day, which is a day for remembering Indigenous children who were killed in the, I can't think of the right.
Residential schools?
Residential schools. Oh. There was a residential school here in Vermont, where Castleton now is. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you for demonstrating how this is a community resource, right? It's like you all know about different things that connect to these themes. And thank you, Elizabeth, again for sharing that. And if I haven't already included some links in this one that's going to go out about some of what you mentioned, I will add that in. But it's great. It's a great resource. So thank you for modeling how it takes a community really to resource us all. Okay, great. I think for the sake of time, I'm going to just keep rolling through, again, sharing a little bit of what you all identified in belonging. And again, the question that I have in mind for you all to be thinking about is, what does this mean for you in your role as a leader? Part of this was inspired by a conversation I mentioned in an email I shared with you all with a community member who he and I we have different ideas, different beliefs, right? Different values. And yet we still could come together and talk for 2 hours. Like we just sat and we talked about stuff for 2 hours, right? About like how we see things differently. But what we were able to do was really listen to each other. And so I think that's like, well, what does it mean, right? Again, to be leading this work, trying to create sense of belonging. What does this mean when we think about conflict or we think about different ideas and beliefs and values? How do we still find ways to come together across difference? So for those of you who fill this out, I'm just going to share some word clouds of some of the findings. It was anonymous in your responses. So the first one was 1 to 3 sentences. What does belonging mean to you? Just anybody yell out 1 or 2 things that you see that are standing out to you here.
Welcome.
Smile.
Family.
Yourself.
All right.
Exchange.
I didn't hear anybody say feel. That's like the biggest word here, right? Which is also, I know there's a rub. It's like, well, we don't talk about feelings or feel like, what is the role? How are we creating that feeling, right, of belonging? That was the thing that was mentioned most often in the responses from y'all, was something about a feeling. There's a feeling that goes along with sense of belonging. Okay, how about the next slide? So the next one was asking you about recapping a time where you felt a sense of belonging and what were the top 3 things or conditions that made that experience, that supported you in feeling a sense of belonging. So just, again, anybody can shout out, what are some of the things that you're reflecting on or you're noticing about this?
Care. Welcome.
Kindness.
Love it. And who gets to decide whether something's welcoming or not? You know, I know that's something I know. I used to work with a group that's like, oh yeah, we're just gonna put it out in Spanish, right? And somehow that's gonna attract people who are like are Latinx, right? And it's like, is that the only way that you're trying to be welcoming? And you're deciding as like, you know, it was a group of white folks who decided that's how to be welcoming. It's like, but who gets to decide? It's also a question like, who gets to decide whether something is actually supporting belonging? You know, it's like we need to anyway, I could I could keep talking about that. I'm like, and I know we're doing that work. We're doing that work to really hear from students especially. Okay. So welcoming, who gets to decide? How about the next slide? When you felt excluded or othered, couple folks, just what are you noticing about this?
Felt unable.
Yeah.
Unable.
Yeah, right?
I mean, that
Unable.
is exclusion.
Yeah. And you know, one of the things that stood out most to me in my conversation with this community member was that people want to be heard, right? They want to be listened to. They want to be heard. It doesn't mean you have to agree. But I know for me, it's true for me too. It's like, you know, my husband is really good at sharing relatable stories. And I'm like, when you do that, I feel really unheard, you know? So like, I want to be heard. I want to know that somebody is taking time to listen to me. So how can we create that? How about the next slide? This was a question about what do you all feel like you need to support sense of belonging? Because you all as a board, right? I mean, you have your own culture. You have your culture of being a board. What do you need to feel a sense of belonging on this board? But then also as you think more broadly, you know, across the supervisory union. What does anybody notice about this? Maybe a couple folks. What do you notice about this?
Listening. Understand.
Human.
Different.
Yeah.
Inclusive. Different human.
Yeah.
Construct.
So I know this was thank you for sharing what you were noticing. I think there's like one more thing I want to share. I think it's the next slide. It was some thoughts that folks shared. Just I asked, you know, any additional comments. And so people feeling encouraged by the courage of this board. This is all from your fellow board members, right? Navigating cultural and behavioral shifts needed to truly foster belonging is a tall order, but hopeful to make some real progress. Somebody wants to reach out to others more, right? Spend more time. This was kind of the noticing I posed at the beginning is like, where do you have time to connect, to be in relationship, to get to know what makes each other feel welcome and sense of belonging? If that's not taking place during these meetings, like where does that happen? When does that happen? Change happens. And important to remind it as adults and to teach kids that we all have feelings of not belonging, right, at times. And that can help us actually support a sense of belonging for others if we can remember that. So yeah, really just wanted to see anything else you're reflecting on. And then the question that I wanted to leave you with thinking about is on the next screen, which is just on the next slide is what does this mean for you in your role as a leader? And I know we don't have a lot of time to really talk about that, but maybe just like one or two comments or reflections.
I think my role, I think my role is at some point to educate our communities on what we are actually talking about when we talk about education equity. I think there's a lot of fear and a lot of confusion about what that actually means.
Mm-hmm. I think we can definitely build to that. I know you mentioned that last time. I pictured like a photograph, like yeah, everybody has photographs at some point with signs that say educational equity means to me, you know, or something you can develop over time. But certainly community conversations would be great for that. And Elizabeth, yes.
Thanks. I have used as sort of a guideline for belonging, and I think this was in one of the readings that you sent out from the Othering Belonging Institute, that it's a big step beyond creating room at the table. It's getting rid of the table. So that, it's letting somebody DJ if they feel like DJing instead of sitting at the table. And, you know, not just moving chairs around the same table. To be a metaphor to death.
Yeah, I love that. I'm like, why is it a table? Why isn't it like a party or something? It's always a table. But I love that, right? Whose table is it? Who's setting the table? Who's invited to the table, right? It's like, I love how you remind us, Elizabeth, maybe it's not about the table, really. It's about like, and this is what as you're thinking about, right, again, thinking about what you've heard tonight about certain students that may be feeling more excluded, what could it look like to really center them at some point? How do we think about belonging from a way of centering the people who are most impacted and realizing that if and when we can do that, right, everybody benefits. So any final thoughts? I know y'all have to move along. Yes.
I was really struck with that lecture when he talked about inclusion and you're all welcome to my party but as long as you fit in with me, it's okay. And that was such a revelation to me that we don't, that's how we include, but that's not what they need. And that's not real inclusion.
Yeah, appreciate that.
I
So
also
true.
want to comment on what Bill said about educating our community. They need to be part of this conversation. They need to hear what we're hearing here. They need to read what you're asking us to read. I really appreciate the article on belonging by Dr. Powell, where he talks about people don't understand, and so we need to take that opportunity to help them understand as educators.
Yeah, I think to use the language of the podcast that you picked out, it's bridging, I think, is a really good term to use, right? You need to, and I think that speaks to something you mentioned earlier, Tracy, and ties into a lot of these comments, is that if we want to be effective, educators in this context, like, sharing knowledge and sharing experience and bridging with our community, part of that is listening. A large part of that is listening. And I think that in order to be successful, we have to be listening. It has to be a discourse, not a monologue.
Tracy, I just wanted to say thank you for putting those questions together, because the thought that went through them, like it wasn't just you soliciting information from me, it was me being like, oh, like as I was doing the questions, and that was just really insightful for me to process what I was responding to. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for that feedback. And thank you all for engaging. And, it's like this isn't easy work, right? Because what do you do then when you are listening and you're listening to an idea or an opinion, that really challenges you, right? That's outside. I mean, and I say this because it's something that I'm not sure, like, personally, like, I don't know, but I know that we're not going to be able to change anything unless we can find a way to listen to each other. And sometimes that can diffuse how people are feeling. And we know we're seeing so much polarization everywhere in this country. It's like, if we can find a way to listen to each other and like meet on those places where we have some shared values and shared ideas, I think there's a lot that's possible in that. So we shall see. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
New curriculum program presentation.
So you
Or
skipped the
my-
one right before
No,
that,
I
which
did.
is
Continuous improvement plan. I'm
the
sorry,
new
Angie.
curriculum presentation was part of the superintendent's report.
Okay.
You can read it. Access to it. Let me share my screen, please.
So I have two plans to share with you tonight, and the first one is a continuous improvement plan. They were sent to you last week. So I would like to, first of all, if anybody has any particular questions you want me to answer as I'm presenting, now would be a good time to ask those questions so that I can make sure that I answer them when I'm talking about the plan. It's really small, so I will blow that up.
Or enlarge it.
Yes, I will enlarge it. Okay, so we are not required to do a continuous improvement plan update for the AOE every year, but because we base our continuous improvement plan on our WIGs, our wildly important goals, we did adjust it to show our updated wildly important goals. We, in the continuous improvement plan, there are two kinds of goals that we have to make. One is an academic goal, the other one is a safe and healthy schools goal. So our academic goal reflects what our SU goal is for both math and language arts. And, oops, sorry, I think that's the one that's shown second. So the academic achievement, sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. So 100% of students will grow in reading and math proficiency, and that we will use our data practices to help teacher teams review that data and be basing interventions and approaches to students' learning by basing it in the data. We will increase the percentage of SU students who achieve reading proficiency by 3%. We are transitioning from Track My Progress to the STAR assessment this year. So we tried to pick a meaningful growth target that could be reflected in the STAR data, because not all students, we piloted STAR last year, but not all students took STAR. So we tried to find a number that we thought we could still achieve based on the fact that we hadn't taken STAR as a whole, but now we have, because those were completed in the last few weeks. So that'll be like our baseline data, and then the next time it is taken, we will be able to see some growth. And then that percentage of SU students will increase their math proficiency by 3% by applying the STAR assessment. The things that we're doing to do that also, and what we will look at for measures, is Christine and I are working with the principals to check in with them on a weekly basis to help them to look at the data from the meetings that the teachers are having, to see what specific actions a principal can do as a instructional leader in the building to support that work. And then the new program implementation, which I talked about a little bit. Well, I didn't talk that earlier, but it's in the slideshow, in Christine's slideshow. And then the Safe and Healthy Schools goal is using our Leader in Me implementation, using our scores and our measured results assessment, which will be put out, I think in April, May, to see that we are making progress in our cores 1, 2, and 3. And while I'm here, I'm gonna just bold that up because that was not bold. So that is basically the continuous improvement plan, those two areas. Any questions?
I've got a question. It's sort of about this, but I was wondering, with the new curricula, is Fontes and Pinnell, I don't know if I'm getting that name right.
You are. That is,
have we dumped that for a new ELA curriculum?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
For good reason.
for good reason.
Yes, it's not based on the science of reading, so
Right, yeah.
it doesn't align.
So,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you. The second
If
plan,
anybody wants the materials, we have lots of them.
I think those books are can be used
They can.
for practice and that sort of
Yeah.
thing, but
They're good
if it's
books.
as an intervention, that not so
But
much.
they're not.
The ARPESER 3 plan, this is our last year with ARPESER funds. That grant will sunset or expire, I guess, September 30th, 2025. So we'll get summer school in and maybe some professional development in August. before we actually, have those funds completely, used. That's exciting.
It's 24, not 25, right?
2024, right.
24.
Yes, did I say 25? It's
You did.
FY 25. I do that all the time. Thank you for listening to
everybody
me and
knows.
catching that.
Yeah.
So this whole this first part is just about the grant. And then I updated this part. Anything that's highlighted in this blue color is updated.
Yes, it is.
And then I wanted to just give you the opportunity. I wanted to explain to you that I am working on ESSER 3 amendment right now. It is in development. And so I did not feel comfortable putting amounts in on this plan. And I will as soon as I have a viable amendment for the grant, because we're moving some things around to reflect the priorities in this plan. And you can see my comments. It just shows where I need to update those amounts. If anybody has any specific comments out there in our community, you can certainly email me and I'm happy to answer any questions.
And this is on the website, correct, Angie?
This is on the website because I have it linked to this live doc. So as I make changes in this doc, those changes are reflected on the website.
Can you go back up for just a second?
Sure.
Right there. To homeless children and youth too.
Yes.
Is it 0 because we don't have any homeless children?
No, amount expended to date is, I don't have the updated numbers.
What we've spent.
That's what we've spent today. I mean, that's not a very big grant. Think that transporting one child could easily cost 10, 15 grand.
Yeah.
Depending on, how long that happens. So, this is just one small piece that's helping us support that work. And I was not able to get the top, not that the numbers aren't available to me. I didn't update the amounts, but I will.
I don't think
And we are,
but this
that area, it has grown. We have
We've had
23.
that are in live process with several that are in flux.
Yeah.
So every little bit helps for homeless support for students experiencing homelessness. So this next section, we had, I think I'll condense this section, but this sort of gives you some ideas of getting our technology systems up to set us up for being able to manage whatever comes in at us in the next 10, 15 years, Larry? Is that what you were thinking? I think you had said that this really sets us up to be state of the art so that we can manage whatever Mother Nature happens to throw at us so that we can best serve our students.
We've had the same switches for 17, 18 years, and this would allow us to, I feel comfortable saying 10 to 15. You wouldn't have to buy any more switches, and I think it'd be a great use of ESSER grant funds. It's less money you'd have to put in the general fund eventually.
And it certainly falls under the COVID guidelines. It was our technology that allowed us to provide remote learning for our students and continues to support students in a variety of ways.
Those switches are quite outdated.
Yeah.
Since I've been working here.
Yeah.
18 years.
Can you define what switches are?
So the boxes and wires and all the closets.
Okay.
In that buildings where, we're talking about the MDS and the IDS. Every school has an MDF, which is the main, for lack of a better word, mainframe.
Mhm.
And then it goes into the individual closets, and every school is different. So like Heartland has 3 closets, Windsor has 7. So, and you just, it's replacing all those switches. All those switches would be replaced. We also used ESSER funds earlier using the same goal as that Angie just said for all of our access points, which we upgraded throughout all the schools.
Awesome, thanks. 15 more years, you have to start talking about building replacement.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Oops.
It's true.
This section, the academic session, we were very fortunate to have these funds. We were able to use title funds for Windsor and Heartland to purchase amplified CKLA and Eureka Squared materials. We also used ESSER funds to purchase for Weathersfield and Albert Bridge schools. So local budgets were not burdened with the costs of those materials. I'm hoping we can do that again for any replacement materials we need. The big expenses were the teacher manuals and that sort of thing, but student consumables will have to be renewed every year, so there is an expense of the new programs. Our transitional kindergarten program, unfortunately, but we didn't have enough student participation to continue it for this fiscal year. So what we have done with that teacher who we had contracted with, she is a kindergarten interventionist, and based on need, she is serving students in Heartland and Windsor School right now.
And you plan to keep that as something for next year if there's a need?
That is, we will not be able to fund it through ESSER funds for next year because the funds expire next September, so.
I've got a question about that.
Sure.
So the transition kindergarten program was open to everybody in our supervisory unit. So now that the person has become an interventionist, how do the other students in this other two schools access?
That was a decision based on a team decision. Those schools did not need the support at this time, given the resources that they already have in their buildings.
We brought it to all of the kindergarten teachers in the SU, and it was a discussion so that the decision was made as a team, not with the teachers based on student needs.
And it's not set in stone, so if it needs.
If something if student need arises in one of those other, in Weathersfield or ABS, then that is something the principal can bring to our attention. And
I mean, being really thinking more about spending, and it's not really equitable spending to since the other two towns are paying. Well, it's ESSER funds.
It is ESSER funds.
But it's still not really equitable spending. Is there a way to?
I'll speak a little bit, but even TK itself was on identified students that wasn't balanced as well. So that it was based on individual students who were referred to TK for the last 2 years. And even this year, we had a few kids referred, but not a critical mass of students. None were referred from Weathersfield. And so, for example, this year, so it was never, it was always based on individual students wherever they were. So I think that in that sense, it's equitable because wherever the kids are, we're gonna go, no matter where they are. And still have that flexibility. It's just right now, those teachers have not identified that there is anyone to do that intensive work with, like what TK intended. That was the route we took to, because we had talked about trying to do it, divvy it up more equitably, but then the need wasn't there. People were like, no, we don't need this. So
There's a
we're going where the kids are at.
And some of it's student enrollment. I mean, Weathersfield has a small kindergarten cohort this year, with support in the classroom. And that's part of the reason why they're not in need of this extra support.
Well, and equity is based on need, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I still wonder whether the teachers in the other two schools really feel that they can access it.
It's a great question that we should be revisiting regularly.
So
We are
Katie, with
checking
your
in place.
input, and am I right to assume that even though this is a ESSER funded program, this comes under student services?
Because Christine and I are the ones who spearheaded TK, and then I stayed on with TK with Lindsay because it was housed at Heartland as a way to sort of bridge our early intervention. So by default, it was funded through ESSER, and I've been working closely with kindergarten
Okay,
for
so
developmental
if,
services.
when the ESSER funds sunset and there's a need for this program,
That's my question.
would it come under the hospital student services? Because
I would not think so.
Because these are probably identified students.
No.
Okay,
No.
No, we didn't, that was not a deciding factor. Actually, sometimes that was a deciding factor not to do it, because that was, the intent was for developmentally appropriate transitional program between pre-K and K.
okay.
So,
Early-
yeah,
young
it's a good
fives.
question.
Yeah,
But my question is, goes beyond that, is the ESSER funds are going to sunset, and if there is a need, will we have that program, or can we not afford that program?
I think one of the things that I was going to bring up next, August, October, my report, was thinking about what are our early childhood needs. Is it pre-K, is it TK? Looking forward down the future for what we've already done for pre-K, which, 2 full-time classrooms is huge from where we were, to what else can we do in that realm, or is it TK? That's a conversation that we need to look at this year, as we plan for FY '25 and FY
Probably
'26.
almost year by year to see
Yeah.
what the need is.
Yeah.
I mean, the question would be, in my mind, do we spend the money on transitional kindergarten, or do we spend the money on bolstering full-time preschool
Pre-K.
In other buildings.
in all buildings?
In all the
Yeah.
buildings.
That was part of my thing next, preview.
Okay.
Okay, so for Summer Academy, we added FY '25, so summer 2024. That'll be, so it really is not summer 2025. It's summer 2024. I'm gonna fix that right now.
Confuses me too every
Oh my gosh, yeah. Keep your eyes on me.
That
So-
too, is that, it's
This coming
hopefully,
summer.
will we be able to carry on?
That is,
Right, that's
again,
summer.
something that would have
That's
to
coming summer.
be decided how it moves,
24.
where it moves to.
Technically, it's part of SY '25.
Summer Academy is actually 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, FY '25, so
Yeah.
summer '24.
But it happens summer 24.
Right.
So that would be the 4th year that we ran it, because we ran it summer 21, 22, 23, and then 24.
I don't know if Larry finds it, but that is just a pain for state reporting. High school, summer pro school.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jen.
Larry?
I'll love to see how Ed 5 deals with that.
Yeah.
The new ed,
Yeah, so would I.
So I have, we've added some more, so, the Best Institute, we wanna send teams from each building to work on further developing their multi-tiered system of supports. That's a conference that we typically, or in the past, have funded with BEST funds, but the BEST funds this year were quite small. And, so if we have funding in the RFS 3, that would be a way to support this work. The Professional Learning and Self-Determined Learning is a conference that we would like to send administrators, some school leaders, and some students
How do
to.
you determine which students go to the best institute?
Best Institute is for teachers.
Oh, it's for
And-
teachers.
Yeah, so it's not the Self-Determined Learning Conference so last year, a group of us went to Colorado, you may recall, and we visited schools that were a self-determined learning school, and it would have been so cool to have some students with us to see how that school was running. This year, the conference is in Virginia, so it's a little more doable for us to bring some students, so hopefully we can make that work. The Big Ideas Summit, we did drive to there a couple years ago. That has been in there for a bit. The Leading Equitable Schools training, more self-determined learning. This is our faculty in 912 working with our consultant, Mike Nicholson, on developing practices that align with self-determined learning for students. And the report so far is we have a core group of faculty that are very excited and very invested in this work. So that is really, like, it's happening. We're seeing things happen and grow. That's very exciting. School-based clinician, last year we did not have one. So this year we do have one that we are able to fund with the ESSER funds. And I think adding more in for Leader in Me. And then our our teachers that we fund with this, two in each of the, in each district, really. At Windsor School, we lost that position. We had a teacher leave, the teacher moved on, and then that teacher that was replaced, left. So we are gonna try to fill that position, but, as of now, I haven't heard that we have filled that position.
What position is?
It is a intervention classroom teacher at the middle level. So.
$100,000?
That's
Where?
what a staff member costs.
Benefits, benefits, yeah.
And that's 2 years worth, so,
Yeah.
because we started using ARP ESSER 3 in FY '23. It says FY '22, I don't think that's accurate, so we probably used ESSER 2 in FY '22. Our equity coordinator is part of our ESSER funded position, that'll be something that will be moving to the SU for our fiscal year '25. The recovery coordinator, we funded that position in '22 and '23, and that position was moved to the SU budget last fall for FY '24. And that is it for the updates with this plan. So this plan, in order to meet the requirement for meaningful consultation and stakeholder engagement, is available on the website, on the curriculum website. And you can also find a Google form there, survey for your specific feedback. And of course, you can always email me directly with any questions that you have. The link to that is right here. But you can also let me show everybody in just a second. Go to wsesu.net. You can find curriculum under our SU, curriculum and instruction. And over in this left column, you can find ARP ESSER 3 with our public comment form and our updated, taking a second to load. Sorry, I didn't notice that, you couldn't see it. So there's the ESSER, there's the ESSER form. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, I have just a couple things to hit on in the policy review, to sort of move things along for next time. Definitely not going to hit all of them, but public complaint about personnel. I put in a comment around, which isn't something I think should go in there, but it addresses Davis's concern about what immediate supervisor is. It was just a straight definition, and so it probably can be.
You put that in the comments?
I put it in the comments, and then one of the other concerns that I read is that most likely there's some redundancy when going to supervisors, because a lot of the time the immediate supervisor is going to be the principal. And then, so I said possibly that as a second step to go to the building supervisor, because that may be different. Not everybody's immediate supervisor is actually going to be the principal.
Correct.
So.
Could be a case manager.
Yeah, it could be a case manager.
So you put comments in?
Yes.
Okay, I'll look at those.
I don't know if there was any other discussion about that. So,
Bill, were you thinking about writing the definition in like a definition section, or just having that first?
I think so. I think that would probably be really clear.
Yep.
I'll have Lori do
The
that.
immediate supervisor, because.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah, unless you know that, have heard that.
Yeah.
In a lot of legalese of businesses as well as school districts, it's confusing.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of definition sections
Yes.
and policies.
I did have a comment on that, and I know that there was some questions about, are we giving the individuals an impression that once they go to the board, they can't go any further, or I was thinking, do folks know that they can always go to the Board of Education if they're not satisfied with the decision that the board makes?
Within this process and this policy, the board is the last stop.
Okay.
I mean,
I just wanted to-
legally. I mean,
okay.
that's
All right.
putting something else in there, even though, you could take some of the court, you can contact, but within this policy, we can only make policy and inform policy based upon what our process is.
I'm good with that. I
Yeah.
just didn't know if we wanted, not everyone knows, but I'm sure that some people know that, well, they'll see what other options do I have? But I didn't know if we needed to put anything, but that's okay.
I'm not fully clear what options the Department of Education
Yeah, I
have.
don't need.
There really isn't nothing they could do except report to the Department of Ed and then the Agency of Ed. Could do something, but the next step, of course, would be litigation.
Right.
Would hire a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bring it forward. So,
You can make a complaint to the
Yes.
AOE, and they do follow up.
and yes,
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm sure most people know that
Yeah.
without us having to tell them
Yeah.
that.
right.
I assume we could also, this is in a policy, but if there was like a procedure or like a toolkit or something, or just like a blurb on a
Yeah,
website that says, you can also do this, but it just doesn't go in our policy.
Right.
And within, if it ever got to the level of coming to the board, then, and that came up.
Yeah.
This is else you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had, you get a lawyer, that's kind of, that's what you do,
Mhm.
And I've known people that have done that, and it's not a great path, but it does happen.
Okay.
Transgender and gender nonconform students, just someone added a bunch of stuff in
So-
Hartford.
I took the Hartford policy that was passed and put that language in there for your consideration
Yeah.
only.
Yeah.
It's highlighted. So,
There are some, they put a lot of
They
work into
did.
that,
yeah,
and there's probably some portions we'd like to replace.
that's what I was
So,
thinking. So,
If we
people
could, sort of a bit of a homework, if we all can kind of review
Yep.
that and look at it.
Yep, that would be
See
great.
which portion we want to have.
Gender.
So I tried to make it really clear with the highlighting, so.
Communication, communicable diseases.
That was pretty straightforward.
That is very straightforward,
Yeah.
just. But, I apologize, I'm whipping through these because it is late. Board meetings and gender preparation and distribution. My reading of that, I actually think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I will take a motion to approve the flagpole request.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion about it?
I like the way it really spells out
Yeah.
the process.
It's a very strong,
Mhm.
well-written policy.
Nice and clear.
Okay.
And I believe I had all the names written down. So we will take, because it's a policy, I would prefer to go around the table and including online. So Davis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Elizabeth?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
And I am an aye. And Colleen?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Anne Marie?
Aye.
And I gotta go through here and see, because I'm doubled up.
Beth?
Yeah, is Beth still there?
I don't see Beth.
I think that's it.
Did I miss anybody?
We got
Mark, I got
We
Mark.
got Mark, yeah.
Okay, I believe that's a
So that one
unanimous.
passes, okay. Do you,
Sam says, can you let Bill know I won't be on boat policy?
Okay,
She's got to drive things. Are you, is that it for policy? I've got a question about policy.
that is. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you. I was rereading our anti-racism policy and procedures sometime in the last month. And somewhere in there, it says that we should annually review that policy. And we haven't done it since we passed it. So I would like for us to take a look at it.
Yeah, and saying it's coming to the end of the year. And hopefully next meeting, we can whip through some of these. So maybe put that at the bottom of the pile
for next month?
and give us a chance to read it, sort of a reminder on the agenda.
And do you want to move all the other ones to the next reading that you just
Yes.
whipped through? Okay.
Yeah.
You got it. Okay. So the anti-racism policy next month, first review.
Yes.
You got it.
Setting the next agenda.
And procedures.
Yeah, they are attached, I believe. Yeah. Procedures.
I think we have, of course, as far as policy is, those are all there.
Oh, at our, sometime.
That's fine.
At some point, we talked about having a matrix of the anti-racism policy and procedures and Act 1 and all of the things that, and how they sort of work together. How is that coming along? Can we talk about that at our next meeting?
Tracy's been working on,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can work on that, and I can look more specifically, like, to update where the anti-racism policy is at, and then any alignment with some stuff. So I can have that ready for y'all for next meeting.
Thank you.
Of course, Tracy's gonna get out our homework.
Yeah, she's gonna send her homework out to you.
Yeah.
And Tracy, if I can help you with the Act 1 part, let me know.
I'd also like to, I know Angie sort of skipped over the new curriculum program presentation. I'd like to hear that.
You got it.
I've been flirting with the idea of maybe actually melding what we teach with what goes on as standards.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So in the work plan, you've got, Larry's got a financial report next month, 5 minutes. But he's gonna do a budget update from the SU Budget Committee next month. Special education report from Katie. And then you've got Tracy's, she can add the matrix to her report and her training, and then my report. And the policies moving forward.
Can we put Tracy near the front?
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that
First
idea.
thing, because I feel like it's.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think if she
engages
comes
you.
after public participation,
Yeah,
not to sort of push off the admin
it's
report.
total, we're not offended in any way.
Okay.
It's totally fine.
It's a good mindset.
Yeah, to get
Yes.
into.
Mhm.
And a
Yes.
Yeah, I
good
agree.
way to start a meeting with, instead of being talked at, no offense, Christine, but like.
Not taken.
Like, to have a collaborative discussion.
Yeah, I will move her up. That's a great idea.
Is any more input about next
For a longer
meeting agenda? I think it's pretty full.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's pretty cool.
So I will take a, do we need an executive session?
We do not, and I just want to note the time, Bill. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
A little
I
over.
will take a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second is Davis.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. All right, stop the recording.
It's 8 o'clock and I'm done.
It happens, right? Your brain just